So, this is really messed up. Straight up actually evil, I would say. This almost seems targeted, but based on, like, Palestinians in general just being blown up indiscriminately and not hitting Hamas for the most part. This should be like a moment of silence type of video, at least for this section. Okay, so I'm gonna I'm gonna make it a moment of silence once I get to the people, okay? And I'm just gonna scroll slowly so you can read it, because this is bizarrely disturbing. Alright. Editor's note: the list below is CPJ's most complete account of journalist deaths in the war. Our database will not reflect many of these casualties until we have fully investigated the circumstances surrounding them. For more information, read our... Yeah. Okay, so for the most part, these deaths are attributed, at least from what I could see, airstrikes. Okay. The Israel-Gaza war has taken a severe toll on journalists since Hamas launched its unprecedented attack against Israel on October 7th, and Israel declared war on the militant Palestinian group, launching strikes on the blockaded Gaza Strip. CPJ is investigating all reports of journalists and media workers killed, injured, or missing in the war, which has led to the deadliest month for journalists since CPJ began gathering data in 1992. As of December 10th, CPJ's preliminary investigation showed at least 63 journalists and media workers who were among more than 18,000 killed since the war began on October 7th, with more than 17,000 Palestinian deaths in Gaza and the West Bank and 1,200 deaths in Israel. The deadliest day of the war for journalist deaths was its first day, October 7th, with 6 journalists killed. The second deadliest day occurred on November 18th, with 5 killed. The Israel Defense Force, IDF, told Reuters and France Press News agencies that it could not guarantee the safety of their journalists operating in the Gaza Strip after they had sought assurances that their journalists would not be targeted by Israel strikes, Reuters reported on October 27th. And you will see why they might have no control over the situation, at least a little bit. This is not human controlled, and this is, again, we will get to that in a second. Journalists in Gaza face particularly high risks as they try to cover the conflict during the Israel ground assault, including devastating Israel airstrikes, disrupting communications, supply shortages, and intense power outages. As of December 10th, 63 journalists and media workers were confirmed dead, 56 Palestinians, 4 Israeli, and 3 Lebanese. 11 journalists were reported injured, 3 journalists were reported missing, 90 journalists were reported arrested. Multiple assaults, threats, cyber attacks, censorship, and killing of family members. CPJ is also investigating numerous unconfirmed reports of other journalists being killed, missing, detained, hurt, or threatened, and of damage to media offices and journalist homes. CPJ emphasizes that journalists are civilians doing important work during times of crisis and must not be forgotten by warring parties, said Sheriff Mansour, CPJ's Middle East and North African Program Coordinator. Yeah, I would have to say wartime journalists are like first responders. Again, I'll say it again, wartime journalists are first responders. Okay. Journalists across the region are making great sacrifices to cover this heartbreaking conflict. Those in Gaza particularly have paid and continue to pay an unprecedented toll and face exponential threats. Many have lost colleagues, families, and media facilities and have fled seeking safety where there is no safe haven or exit. End quote. The list published here includes names based on information obtained from CPJ's resources in the region and media reports. It includes all journalists. involved in news gathering activity. It is unclear whether all these journalists were covering the conflict at the time of their deaths, but CBJ has included them in our count as we investigate their circumstances. The list is being updated on a regular basis. Okay, sorry about the rain with this moment of silence. Kind of can't tune that out. Okay, journalists and media workers reported killed, missing, or injured. Alright, moment of silence beginning. Now imagine you get bombed in an airstrike by Israel or whatever. An airstrike happens to you, but you see the light as you're being pulled out from the rubble, and as you're bloodied and maimed, the first thing you're asked is, "Do you condemn Hamas?" Yeah, uh, that seems to be like a stereotype now. Like, you're not even allowed to question why your home is airstruck by Israel just based on suspicion of Hamas. Okay. So this person is responding to this other tweet, which I guess I will read this original post first. Okay, so Arnaud Bertrand says, absolutely insane. After the bombing of Doctors Without Borders, the IDF will bomb the WHO, and I'm not even mentioning all the hospitals. Hard to see this as anything else than an attempt to destroy all the avenues Palestinians have for medical help. Alright. And Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus says, today the WHO received notification from the Israel Defense Forces that we should remove our supplies from our medical warehouse in southern Gaza within 24 hours, as ground operations will put it beyond use. We appeal to Israel to withdraw the order and take every possible measure to protect civilians and civilian infrastructure, including hospitals and humanitarian facilities. Oh, jeez. Alright, this was on December 4th. Jesus. Doesn't sound like they care at all, no matter what you say to them. Okay, so this is twisted. So, this is what I would like to call the phase of the Mandate of Palestine. I would consider this the cyber mandate or the assassination mandate, possibly. But the cyber mandate makes so much more sense here. It's just, this is the totally new phase that Israel's stage of genocide seems to be. Okay. The Gospel. How Israel uses AI to select bombing targets in Gaza. Concerns over data-driven factory that significantly increases the number of targets for strikes in the Palestinian territories. Israel military has made no secret of the intensity of its bombardment of the Gaza Strip. In the early days of the offensive, the head of its air force spoke of relentless, around-the-clock airstrikes. His forces, he said, were only striking military targets, but he added, we are not being surgical. There has, however, been relatively little attention paid to the methods used by Israel Defense Forces, IDF, to select targets in Gaza, and to the role artificial intelligence has played in their bombing campaign. As Israel resumes its offensive after a 7-day ceasefire, there are mounting concerns about the IDF's targeting approach in the war against Hamas. That, according to the health ministry in Hamas or in Gaza, has so far killed more than 15,000 people in the territory. The IDF has long burnished its reputation for technical prowess and has previously made bold but unverifiable claims about harnessing new technology. After the 11-day war in Gaza, May 2021, officials said Israel had fought its first AI war using machine learning and advanced computing. The latest Israel-Hamas war has provided an unprecedented opportunity for the IDF to use such tools in a much wider theater of operations, and in particular to deploy an AI target creation platform called the Gospel, which has significantly accelerated a lethal production line of targets that officials have compared to a factory. The Guardian can reveal new details about the Gospel and its central role in Israel's war in Gaza, using the interviews with intelligence sources and in little-noticed statements made by the IDF and retired officials. This article also draws on testimonies published by the Israel-Palestinian publication Plus 972 magazine and the Hebrew language outlet Local Call, which have interviewed several current and former sources in Israel's intelligence community who have acknowledged who have knowledge of the gospel platform. Sorry. Their comments offer a glimpse into a creative AI facilitated military intelligence unit that is playing a significant role in Israel's response to the Hamas massacre in southern Israel um, on September 7th. October 7th, sorry, what am I saying? The slowly emerging picture of how Israel's military is harnessing AI comes against a backdrop of growing concerns about the risk posed to civilians as advanced militaries around the world expand the use of complex and opaque automated systems on the battlefield. Quote, other states are going to be watching and learning, said a former White House security official similar with the U.S. military's use of autonomous systems. The Israel-Hamas war, they said, would be an important moment if the IDF is using AI in a significant way to make a targeted choice with life and death consequences. From 50 targets a year to 100 a day. In early November, the IDF said more than 12,000 targets in Gaza had been identified by its Target Administration Division. Describing the unit's targeting process, an official said, quote, we work without compromise in defining who and what the enemy is. The operatives of Hamas are not immune no matter where they hide. The activities of the division formed in 2019 and the IDF intelligence directive are classified. However, a short statement on the IDF website claimed it was using an IDF-based system called Habsora, the Gospel in English, in the war against Hamas to protect targets at a fast pace. Produce targets. Okay. The IDF said that, quote, through the rapid and automatic extraction of intelligence, Gospel produced targeting recommendations for its researchers, quote, with the goal of a complete match between the recommendations of the machine and the identification carried out by a person, end quote. So, I mean, obviously there's still a person attached to the AI. There always is. That's why there's biases built into AI. It's not thinking for itself. It's merely an extension of our imagination. So, this is just terrifying. Alright. Military sources familiar with the IDF's targeting processes confirmed the existence of the gospel to 972/local calls, saying it had been used to produce automated recommendations for attacking targets, such as the private homes of individuals suspected of being Hamas or Islamic Jihad operatives. In recent years, the Target Division has helped the IDF build a database of what sources said was between 30,000 and 40,000 suspected militants. Systems such as the Gospel, they said, had played a critical role in building lists of individuals authorized to be assassinated. Avik Kavachi, who served as the head of the IDF until January, has said the Target Division is powered by AI capabilities and includes hundreds of officers and soldiers. In an interview published before the war, he said it was, quote, a machine that produces vast amounts of data more effectively than any human and translate it into targets for attack, end quote. I mean, that doesn't really justify it at all, but okay. Again, powered by biases at the same time. This is not... No. It's actually pretty simple. This isn't complicated. According to Kovaci, once this machine was activated in Israel's 11-day war with Hamas in May 2021, it generated 100 targets a day. Quote, to put it into perspective, in the past, we would produce 50 targets in Gaza per year. Now this machine produces 100 targets a single day, with 50% of them being attacked. Precisely what forms of data are ingested into the gospel is not known, but experts said AI-based decision support systems for targeting would typically analyze large sets of information range from of sources, such as drone footage, intercepted communications, surveillance data, and information drawn from monitoring the movements and behavior patterns of individuals and large groups. The Target Division was created to address a chronic problem for the IDF. In earlier operations in Gaza, the Air Force repeatedly ran out of targets to strike. since senior Hamas officials disappeared into tunnels at the start of any new offensive, sources said. Systems such as the Gospel allowed the IDF to locate and attack a much larger pool of more junior operatives. One official who worked on targeting decisions in previous Gaza operations said the IDF had not previously targeted the homes of had not previously targeted members of Hamas for bombings. They said they believed they had changed for the present conflict. The houses of suspected Hamas operatives now targeting regardless of rank. Okay, so do they know or do they not know? They're suspected of being Hamas operatives, but they're homes of junior Hamas members. So you either know their houses for the junior Hamas or you don't know. This is a completely contradictory sentence right here. This whole situation right here. Alright. Just wanted to point that out. That's really weird. Quote, there is a lot of houses, the official said, 972/local call. Hamas members who don't really mean anything live in homes across Gaza, so they mark the home and bomb the house and kill everyone there. Target-driven score, likely civilian death toll. In the IDF's brief statement about its target division, a senior official said the unit produces precise attacks on infrastructure associated with Hamas while inflicting great damage to the enemy and minimal harm to non-combatants. Which, how is that possible based on what we've fucking seen? The precision of strikes recommended by the AI Targeting Bank has been emphasized in multiple sources in Israel media. The Yedioth Aronoth Daily News reported that the unit makes sure as far as possible there will be no harm to non-involved civilians. A former senior Israeli military source told The Guardian that operatives use a, quote, very accurate measurement of the rate of civilians evacuating a building shortly before a strike, which is just impossible to move and just go somewhere, which is just genocide alone. Even if you're not fucking striking them, you're just expecting them to flat out leave. As a whole population, okay, we use an algorithm to evacuate many civilians. Many civilians are evacuated gives us a green, yellow, red, or like a traffic signal. Oh, must have some demographic information too, like. This is fully disturbing. However, experts in AI and armed conflict who spoke to The Guardian said they were skeptical of assertions that AI-based systems reduce civilian harm by encouraging more accurate targeting. A lawyer who advised governments on AI and compliance with humanitarian law said that there was little empirical evidence to support such claims. Others pointed to the visible impact of the bombardment. Quote, look at the physical landscape of Gaza, said Richard Moyes, a researcher who heads Article 36, a group that campaigns to reduce harm from weapons. Quote, we're seeing the widespread flattening of an urban area with heavy explosive weapons. To claim there's precision and narrowness of force being exerted is not borne out of the facts. Yeah, it just makes no sense that they could even claim that. Okay. According to figures released by the IDF in November, during the first 35 days of the war, Israel attacked 15,000 targets in Gaza, a figure that is considerably higher than the previous military operations in the densely populated coastal territory. By comparison, in 2014 war, which lasted 51 days, the IDF struck between 5,000 and 6,000 targets. Multiple sources told The Guardian and plus 972/local call that when a strike was authorized on the private homes of individuals identified as Hamas or Islamic Jihad operatives, target researchers knew in advance the number of civilians expected to be killed. Each target, they said, had a file containing a collateral damage score that stipulated how many civilians were likely to be killed in the strike. Of course, this makes total sense. That sentence is so true. I could have just guessed that I was going to read something that would say that. Like, I've been saying that. This is all about collateral damage. Okay. One source who, especially when there's underground like bunkers that Hamas goes into while civilians are killed. This means nothing to airstrike them. Okay. One source who worked until 2021 on planning strikes with the IDF said, quote, "The decision to strike is taken by the on-duty unit commander, some of whom were more trigger-happy than others." What the? So you just got psychopaths literally using this AI. All right, sure. Uh, Not surprised. Again, not surprised. Like, who the hell could be surprised that a task that is bombing people and calculating the known what's it called, civilian collateral damage score, like, you just have people behind that and continuing to do this. Okay. The source said that there had been occasions when there was doubt about the target, and, quote, "We killed what I thought was disproportionate amount of civilians." An Israeli military spokesperson said, quote, "In response to Hamas' barbaric attacks, the IDF operates to dismantle Hamas military and administrative capabilities. In stark contrast to Hamas' international attacks on Israel men, women, and children, the IDF follow international law and takes feasible precautions to mitigate civilian harm." Mass assassination factory. Sources familiar with how AI-based systems have been targeting into the IDF's operations said such tools had significantly sped up the target creation process. Quote, "We prepare the target automatically and work according to a checklist." A source who previously worked in the target division told 972/local call, quote, "It really is like a factory. Work quickly and there's no time to delve in deep into the target. The view is that we are judged according to how many targets we manage to generate." End quote. This is... okay. A separate source told the publication the gospel had allowed the IDF to run a, quote, "mass assassination factory in which the, quote, emphasis is on quantity and not quality. A human eye," they said, "will go over the targets before each attack, but it need not spend a lot of time on them." For some experts who research AI and international humanitarian law, on acceleration of this kind raises a number of concerns. Yeah. Dr. Marta Bow, a researcher at the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, said that even when humans are in the loop, there is a risk they develop automation bias and over-rely on systems which come to have too much influence over complex humans' decisions. Like, this should be so obvious. This is not an autonomous situation. Okay. Moyes of Article 36 said that when relying on tools such as the gospel, a commander, quote, "is handed a list of targets a computer has generated, and they, quote, don't necessarily know how the list has been created or have the ability to uh, adequately interrogate and question the targeted recommendations." Quote, "There's a danger," he added, "that as humans come to rely on these systems, they become cogs in a mechanized process and lose the ability to consider the risk of civilian harm in a meaningful way." Which they have, and this is symbolic and not just in erasing people with drone strikes and striking them in any way or war. This is just symbolic of people looking down on their phones or being distracted by just any crazy nonsense. But I'm getting off topic here. This really does open up a broader topic, honestly. Alright. In this last article, honestly, this doesn't shock me based on what I know or read about demographic technology and how you can allow a trend to happen or manipulate the trend to happen. Okay. Study. Someone bet against the Israel stock market in the days before Hamas' October 7 attack. 5 days before the deadliest attack in Israel's history, a warning may have appeared on stock exchanges. A study by researchers from Columbia University and NYU called "Trading on Terror?" suggests that a trader may have been aware of the coming attack, bet against the Israel economy, and walked away with a profit by short selling on the U.S. and Israel stock exchanges. Short selling is a trading strategy aimed at making a profit off an asset that is expected to drop in price. The seller borrows a security and sells it on the open market with the goal of buying it back later at a lower price and pocketing the difference. The study looked at the Israel Exchange Trading Fund, a common way for people to make investment in Israel, which on any given day has around 2,000 shares shorted. According to the researchers, on October 2nd, that number shot up to over 227,000 shares. According to Columbia Law School professor Joshua Mitz, one of the authors of the study, quote, "That's extremely unusual. It was also profitable. The shares sold short for one Israel company alone yielded a profit of millions of Israel shekels." The Tel Aviv Stock Exchange on Tuesday denied that any investors profited by having advanced knowledge of the October 7th attack and said the Columbia study is flawed, Reuters reported. Yaniv Paget, head of trading at the exchange, said the researchers miscalculated the profits short sellers earned in the months leading up to the attack, according to the Wire service. Quote, "I don't see in the data something even close to what they wrote in the paper," Paget told Reuters. "There was nothing unusual in short positions in the stock exchange in the 2 months before the attack." In a response to the criticism, Mitz said that the paper had been updated to reflect the exchange's contention that the researchers had erred by using shekels, Israel's currency, to calculate short sale profits rather than agorot, a smaller denomination used to indicate share prices in Israel. Quote, "As the Israel Securities Authority acknowledges, short-selling trading just before October 7 earned tens of thousands of shekels in profits on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange security alone, and the ISA's investigation did not address the short selling in the Israeli ETF or short-dated options described in our paper," Mitz said in a statement to CBS News. "We hope regulators in Israel and around the world will continue to examine these troubling trading patterns." Mitz and his co-author, Professor Robert J. Jackson, Jr., ran a number of comparisons over the past 13 years to see whether the same thing happened before other major moments of instability in Israel, like the 2014 Israel-Gaza war, the COVID-19 pandemic, or the judicial reform initiative that led huge crowds of Israelis to take to the streets in protest. They found that the short-selling activity in early October was really extraordinary, even when you compare it to those periods of instability, which there are many, end quote. Something similar had happened before, though. On April 3rd, a couple of days... what the hell happened? Oh, a couple of days before the Jewish holiday of Passover. The study links this to an Israel media report claiming Hamas had initially planned its attack for the eve of Passover. "It's almost the same magnitude. What are the odds?" asked Smith. Quote, "The other thing we know," he adds, "is that this looks to have been the product of a single trader based on what we can see in the data. This is extraordinarily unusual." All this led them to their conclusion that the trades were not a coincidence but a tactic by someone who knew the attack was coming. Quote, "We think it's virtually impossible this happened by chance," Mitz told CBS News. "Finding out exactly who made the trades and the profit would be exceedingly difficult," and Mitz says he is pretty pessimistic that whoever was betting against the Israel company will be found. Similarly, Mitz says it's not too easy to stop this sort of trading from happening. Instead, he suggests a different goal. Quote, "What we really need to be asking is how do we internalize the sort of trading information in the public consciousness from an intelligence standpoint, from a public discussion standpoint, from a policy standpoint? What are these signals? What are they teaching us?" There is growing evidence of the massive intelligence failures that preceded October 7th attacks. An Israel soldier told CBS News last week that her team reported unusual activity on the Gaza side of the border beginning 6 months before the attack to her superiors in the IDF, but, quote, they didn't take anything seriously. Mitz says that study shows yet another missed signal. The stock market was screaming, "There's something going on!" Quote, end quote. In response to this study, the Israel Security Authority has said, quote, "The matter is known to the authority and is under investigation by all the relevant parties," end quote. Quote, and goes on to say, "I don't mean to say we found the next prediction of the future," Mitz says, but he believes their work points to a tool that must be incorporated into the intelligence arsenal. Quote, "We should have to write the paper 2 months later that reveals this. We shouldn't have to write the paper 2 months later after it reveals this." So, with this situation, so it's possible that there was somebody very close to the situation, maybe military, maybe somebody with demographic data. Like, I mean, this is a cycle that has been happening for quite a bit. Like airstrikes, attack from Israel, terrorist attack again, attack from Israel, citizens dead. So somebody just saw the signs. I mean, this only makes sense. It's possible, and this could be up for speculation, but what if it was Netanyahu that made the trade? Wouldn't that be something? Alright, I'll see you in the next one.